Yeah, sure.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to another live streaming commentary with Grandmaster Atalik, who comments every day for us games from the previous round. Yesterday was the rest day, so we all had some break, let's say, and today he prepared to analyze the game from the 7th round between Hoang Thanh and Daulyte, and the win of Hoang Thanh made her, let's say, coming to the leaders, so it should be interesting for you to see how she made this victory. So what?
Yeah, you give me the word.
Yes,
yeah, all right. So, okay. So the game is between Hoang Thanh Trang, the Hungarian player, against Daulyte, the Lithuanian, who had really good games in this tournament, but then played the former Vietnamese player who is known for her positional play. Let's check a little bit, let's start with the opening. Game kicks off as a Grunfeld defense, and Hoang plays one of the most crucial lines, known as a Russian variation, after which White gets the center. Albeit White gets the center, Black will hit the center. So this is some sort of a hyper-modern opening. As you know, it developed around 1920s, and then many players' arsenal it's sort of sneaked in, like Fischer, as you know from the world champions, like Kasparov, and then in our time everybody plays this defense. There are a lot of ways to challenge the center: a6, c6, bishop g4, and knight fd7, known as Smyslov's plan. And I believe that a very provocative move, bishop e6, even this has been seen in the last period. Daulyte had something old and new in her mind. So she came up with knight c6, after which the most normal move is bishop e2, bishop g4, and now d5, which is considered to be slightly better and slightly more active than bishop e3, which is still a move. It's not like a mistake, but d5 is more aggressive. Here, it's a critical position. Usually people have the tendency to attack the queen from a5, and when White's queen moves laterally to the other side, either queen b4 or queen a4 comes into consideration. And qualitatively, I would say like queen b4 is a more dangerous move. Both moves actually threaten the bishop on g4. If Black makes the bad mistake of c6, e5 wins a piece, because bishop takes f3, e takes f6 will win one more piece. So that's why, after any of these moves, Black has to react by capturing on f3 and attacking the center. Here the difference is apparent, because if the queen would have been on a4 like the other line, same things would have developed, and Black would have shown some queenside activity, and once he pushes the flank, actually it has an impact also in the center. But in this game, a slightly interesting choice by Daulyte. She has taken on f3, and now g takes f3 makes more sense. Knight a5, queen d3 white is better. So she played knight e5 and c6. I mean, this is sort of a forgotten line. Is it possible to play like this? Obviously, it is. But people had the tendency to choose the other line we have mentioned. Here, what is the problem? The problem here that white has two bishops and a strong center still. Black in many of these lines will jettison a pawn and show some activity. Why it was not chosen by the majority of people, that black has difficulties to play for a win. If you play 4-2 results, especially in professional chess, I mean, at least psychologically you don't feel great during the game. It's one of the most difficult things for players, to be deprived of winning attempts. Let's see, what I mean is will be revealed in the coming moves. Here d takes c6 is equally good. And more or less black is forced to give up a pawn. But on the ensuing complications, black is known to have compensation because the bishops are good. White has a better position, white has a pawn up, but black has a simple idea. After the exchange of queens, we'll play e6, knight d5, a5, from the other side we'll play f6, and she will be slightly worse. The line chosen by the Hungarian champion is also considered to be the best. And came this position. Here, compared to the other one, I mean, there is some nuance that we will see soon. The same type of structure, but maybe white can keep the queens. And also, black aimed to provoke some weaknesses, queen a5, and an interesting decision by Hoang Thanh. Now the main point is, as anybody can see, b4 is a tempo. b4, queen a3, castles. Was considered to be better for white. But Hoang is a very positional player. She didn't want to commit herself on that flank. Has chosen bishop d2. Obviously, moves like queen d8 is not very much appreciated. Yeah, we move our queen in the same direction. But also after queen d8, we will lose time with queen takes e4, and then black can jump knight c5 and knight e6. Still may have some compensation. More forcing line has chosen, queen a4. Now comes some tactics, which is all forced. Some tactics which are all forced. And white sort of has kept the pawn because e4 is about to fall. Not immediately, because bishop takes e4, knight c5 loses the b2 pawn. But white played the important move b4 now. Putting some question under knight b7's place. As you see, knight b7 is deprived of legs to join back to the game. So black had to really lose some time. Here one of the things which comes immediately into mind, to play rook hc8, and then to bring the knight into the game. But after this exchange, I believe that this is a technical position, that white can easily convert the advantage of a pawn. So this is very interesting. Many times you hear that pair of bishops. Here the handicap for white, in some way, the pair of bishops.
The pawn is on E4.
Yeah, still we got the enemy behind the lines. Yeah, our pawn is E4, and she did play F6, accompanied by a couple of forced moves and a mysterious rook move came, like Nimzowitsch would have put out. I mean, 99% of people would have gone to C1, but she didn't challenge. She didn't like to be challenged on that line. She went to D1, which is also possible. It's a choice. I mean, because probably she said to herself, like, I will put the bishop on B3 if it is necessary, and I will try to use the D line with bishop E3 and rook D5, possibly rook A5. It's a long plan. The other one was also not so bad. But I have to say that I am not so happy about the outcome of the opening for white. Probably the other line, instead of maybe instead of bishop E3, D takes C6 was a better choice. Here I believe black has achieved a more or less equal game. Although she has to be very exact. And I think she started by a very good plan, activated the rook, and came this position. Here we have to stop, you know, in many of the stages of this game we will stop and we will talk about. For many people, endgame is the art of trading pieces. Sometimes we should trade pieces, sometimes we should keep them over the board. It's a tremendously deep choice during the game, because maybe for someone, if these rooks are removed, black has an easier game. I find it extremely dangerous for black. The more black exchanges pieces here, the more this majority A and B pawns against black's A pawn becomes apparent in the game. Because on the other side of the board, as you may see, black doesn't have at the moment to create a passer. But here we already have a potential passer. I don't know on which line, A line, B line, according to the circumstances, we will see. I am much more for a move like rook h5, just to keep the rook, to keep 4 rooks over the board. After rook e5, a4, in some way Daulyte went into the direction of exchanging more pieces, and it is not wrong. So far, but it is really, really dangerous. Now, if the rook 6 are exchanged, we will have real difficulties to protect ourselves against the B passer. If the bishops are exchanged, like in the game, also some positions are very dangerous for black. So now, at this moment, black has to be able to keep both the rook and the bishop in the game. And there is the cheaper shot in case of rook d8, bishop h6 wins the exchange, which made this line playable for white. Otherwise, rook d8 would be embarrassing, but on this level, you know, they play really good. So here, the first move is very correct by Daulyte, probably it's her only chance. And so far, you know, she was following a plan. She was trying to exchange as many as pieces and as many as pawns she could. But many times you see that once you know, part with your consistency or your master plan, some dangers follow. Here, in my opinion, bishop takes h2 was really imperative, and then, I don't know, she was probably concerned about rook d7. But still, we still have the passer, the A passer, but with material diminished over the board, black has fair chances for the equality. And this is sometimes unexplainable, the change of mind, the change of heart in some way. That she did play all those things. And somewhere like here, she really went back. It's on G7, yeah? No, which doesn't matter much. So, after H3, she made the crucial mistake to go for the bishop's exchange. I mean, this is really playing with fire. Now the ending is lost. Stone cold lost, you know, like, it's not like, why, I mean, this is something like you commit harakiri or seppuku, you know, but the start of the endgame is also very interesting. If I ask to anyone in this hall, you know, anybody will mention, like, you know, you got the pawn, you place the rook behind. This is Tarash's maxim, yeah, Dr. Tarash was one of the first ones to emphasize it. It's not like he discovered it, but you will see that in such situations, if black rook moves, white's pawn advances. So which is a terrible situation for black. And if white rook moves, nothing happens, because black should still stay there. I will not criticize so much the strange choice by Hoang Thanh, because how the game developed, or should develop, once again she had time to put the rook behind the passport. But we will see, chosen this interesting start of the plan, I would say, which will boil down once again to rook a1 or to rook behind the passport type of approach. So, it doesn't spoil anything, because now sooner or later with white's king coming there, and after d5 the exchange of pawns, and you see that the importance of the passer, black eliminates this, white eliminates d5, and then returns to the other side and eats all the pawns or queens. This is very simple. I mean, there is nothing to explain. So black needs some activity, and once black became active, they came into the same position. One may even say, like, she did it better because, you know, the rook now rook stood on a2. This which has, you know, pluses and minuses, pros and cons. We will see. We will see in some lines, rook on a1 has also some importance, but now it's very difficult to see that. It's really, really Difficult to see that. So black advanced the king to the center, and came king d3. And king e3 is some seemingly interesting move, but unfortunately, there is not this time enough space on that side. So now black can really chase white's rook. Well, we will come into this kind of positions. If the queen side is eliminated, now comes the question that if king side will be eliminated and black's king returning to his own camp, sometimes black may run into the notorious rook endgame of h and f pawns, or a and c pawns. In many of those positions, theoretically, academically, black can hold the game. So this was not white's choice. Rightfully, she played the simple move. Thanks. She played the right move. King d3, facing the kings are facing each other, sort of opposition will become important. I mean, the problem with black, if black gives way, because of the rook there, pawn advances, black will be forced to take the pawn, and white will win not only something over the other side, but the game. Here it's an interesting twist, and for us also for today's analyzed game will depend on endgame principles. We already spoke some of them. I think this is a very interesting point in the game. Black played king c5. In my opinion, somewhere black should push f4. We will return to that. But white couldn't push f4, which is very interesting. Comes an ending in which white wins, and we will talk about the history of this ending, and I will crack up some interesting anecdotes with you. For instance, let's say like king d4, king b3 allows this chase, like we have already mentioned. But let's say I pull my rook, because king b3, yeah, rook b1 is really embarrassing. Then I can hold it either from b5, either king goes to a4, I go to d4, and I exchange and I advance. It's a very tricky line. White has lost a pawn at the moment. But now wins this guy first. And then, here, this way or another wins the other one. Because king c5 promotes with check. Now comes the interesting, point in the game, that this position is a theoretical draw. Why is this a theoretical draw? If this would have been, it would be a theoretical loss. So there are some real small details in endgames that any player should have grasped. It is very obvious that pawn advanced anywhere, this is immediate loss for black. So even theory wouldn't consider this. The problem is now it will be obvious. When black keeps the opposition comes, important position there. And the rule says you have to advance your king to the